From the moment we are born, society begins to shape us. We learn how to behave, how to speak, how to smile at the right time, and how to hide what might not be acceptable. Slowly, we construct what can be called a public face. The version of ourselves that we present to the world. This mask allows us to function smoothly in social life. It helps us gain approval, maintain relationships, and avoid conflict. We wear it to belong, to feel valued, and to be seen as successful or good. Yet, as time passes, this very mask that once protected us begins to confine us. It becomes not a tool of connection, but a barrier that separates us from our true identity. The mask develops early, often as a response to the need for acceptance. A child quickly learns which emotions are rewarded and which are punished. A quiet child who is told to speak up learns to perform confidence. A sensitive one who is mocked for crying learns to suppress tenderness. In this way, the mask becomes a collection of learned behaviors and filtered emotions designed to please others and maintain harmony. It reflects who we think we should be rather than who we are. We smile when we want to cry, agree when we disagree, and say, "I'm fine," when we are anything but fine. Modern life reinforces this pattern. Social media, workplaces, and even friendships subtly demand consistency. A polished, curated image. We showcase our achievements, our laughter, our carefully composed happiness. The digital mask is often even tighter than the physical one, because it must be maintained continuously. The more we perform this version of ourselves, the more distant we become from our inner reality. The pressure to maintain an image creates fatigue, anxiety, and a sense of disconnection. Deep down, we start to feel like imposters in our own lives, unsure of where the performance ends and the real person begins. The mask also serves a psychological purpose: protection. It shields us from rejection and judgment. By controlling how others perceive us, we minimize the risk of emotional pain. When we are hurt, we adjust the mask further, adding layers of politeness, humor, or indifference. Over time, this adaptation becomes automatic. We forget that it is a choice and begin to mistake the mask for our true face. This confusion often manifests in feelings of emptiness or restlessness. We achieve what we thought we wanted: approval, success, security, yet feel strangely hollow inside. The mask has become so well crafted that it hides not only from others but from ourselves. Living behind the mask can also limit personal growth. When we deny our authentic emotions or desires, we cut ourselves off from valuable self-knowledge. The parts of us that don't fit the mask, vulnerability, doubt, longing, creativity, are pushed into the shadows. But what we suppress does not disappear. It waits patiently, surfacing in moments of anger, sadness, or confusion. We may find ourselves reacting strongly to things we don't understand, or feeling trapped in roles that no longer serve us. The more we resist these hidden aspects, the stronger their influence becomes. Yet the mask is not inherently bad. It allows us to function in society, to adapt to different contexts, and to maintain civility. The problem arises when the mask dominates, when it becomes our only mode of being. When we identify completely with our public face, we lose touch with spontaneity, honesty, and emotional depth. We start living according to expectations rather than inner truth. Conversations become rehearsed, laughter becomes mechanical, and relationships become shallow because they are built between masks, not between souls. The journey toward authenticity begins with noticing the mask, when and why we put it on, what it hides, and what it protects. It involves recognizing the tension between who we show and who we are. This awareness can be uncomfortable because it forces us to confront the fear of being truly seen. But that discomfort is the beginning of liberation. When we dare to look behind the mask, we begin to rediscover the raw, unfiltered self that has been waiting beneath the performance, longing to breathe again. Beneath the surface of every human being lies a complex inner world that often goes unseen. A hidden self made up of everything we refuse to acknowledge. It is the part of us that carries our flaws, our fears, our secret desires, and our unexpressed emotions. We push these aspects into the background because they conflict with the image we want to maintain. We are taught to show confidence, not insecurity, kindness, not anger, success, not failure. Over time, the parts that don't fit these ideals are buried deep within us. Yet, even when ignored, they do not disappear. They continue to influence our choices, relationships, and behaviors in subtle and sometimes destructive ways. The hidden self begins to form early in life, shaped by messages from family, culture, and experience. A child who learns that anger leads to punishment may grow into an adult who never expresses frustration, even when deeply wronged. Someone told to be strong after crying may suppress sadness to avoid appearing weak. Little by little, we create an internal division, the self we show to the world and the self we keep in the shadows. This hidden self becomes a storehouse of everything that feels unacceptable, embarrassing, or dangerous to reveal. But repression does not equal erasure. What is denied does not vanish, it waits for acknowledgement. These hidden aspects often emerge in moments when our guard is down. They surface through jealousy, sudden irritability, envy, or even dreams that disturb us. They appear in the people we dislike, in the situations that trigger us, in the emotions that make us uncomfortable. When we feel an intense reaction to something seemingly small, it is often the hidden self trying to speak. Yet, rather than listening, we tend to push it down again, labeling it as bad or unworthy. We prefer to see ourselves as kind, patient, and composed, not realizing that this very preference keeps us from knowing ourselves completely. The hidden self is not purely negative. It holds immense creative and emotional energy. The same impulses that can lead to destruction, if understood, can also lead to creation and transformation. Anger, when faced and expressed healthily, becomes assertiveness. Fear, when acknowledged, becomes caution and wisdom. Desire, when integrated, becomes motivation and passion. Denying these emotions robs us of their positive power. It leaves us hollow, detached, and disconnected from our vitality. The process of self-discovery involves not eliminating these parts, but transforming them through understanding. Facing the hidden self is not easy because it challenges the image we've built. It means admitting that we are capable of cruelty, envy, or deceit. It means confronting the shame and guilt that come from recognizing our imperfections. This confrontation can be painful because it shakes the illusion of moral or emotional purity. But avoiding it only gives the hidden self more control. What we do not face consciously begins to rule us unconsciously. We repeat unhealthy patterns, sabotage our own success, or project our unwanted traits onto others. We might call someone else arrogant, selfish, or lazy, without realizing that we are reacting to what we refuse to see in ourselves. To face the hidden self requires honesty and compassion. Honesty allows us to look clearly at what is inside without distortion. Compassion prevents us from turning that gaze into self-condemnation. The goal is not to judge the hidden parts, but to understand their origins. The fear behind the anger, the pain behind the control, the insecurity behind the arrogance. When we trace these emotions back to their roots, they begin to lose their power over us. What was once dark becomes illuminated, not through suppression but through awareness. In embracing the hidden self, we begin to integrate rather than divide. We accept that being human means containing contradictions, love and resentment, courage and fear, generosity and selfishness. This acceptance does not make us weaker, it makes us whole. To live authentically, we must bring light into the places we once avoided, allowing every part of our being to exist without denial, without disguise, without the constant need to pretend. Within each of us exists a quiet presence, an inner voice that speaks in whispers rather than shouts. It does not argue or demand attention, it simply waits for us to listen. This voice often appears as intuition, a subtle sense of knowing that cannot be explained logically, or as dreams that unfold images and stories beyond our control. In the noise of modern life, where schedules, opinions, and external expectations dominate our attention, this inner guidance is often ignored. Yet it is through listening to this voice that we begin to uncover the deeper truths of who we are and what we need. Intuition is not a mystical gift reserved for a few. It is a natural human capacity. It arises from the integration of experience, emotion, and subconscious understanding. Long before the conscious mind can analyze a situation, intuition senses its essence. It tells us when something feels wrong, even if the facts look right, or when a path feels right, even if it defies reason. The body, emotions, and instincts all contribute to this inner knowing. It is the sum of countless impressions stored beyond awareness. Memories, patterns, insights, all coming together in a flash of understanding. When we dismiss it, we cut ourselves off from one of the most profound sources of wisdom available to us. Dreams function as another channel of this inner communication. While we sleep, the mind weaves together fragments of the day, unresolved emotions, and symbols from the depths of our psyche. Dreams are not random. They are messages in symbolic language. They reveal conflicts we avoid, desires we repress, and possibilities we have not yet considered. A recurring dream of falling may point to insecurity or loss of control, while a dream of flying might reflect a longing for freedom. By paying attention to dreams, recording them, reflecting on their emotions and symbols, we engage in a dialogue with the unconscious parts of ourselves. Through this dialogue, we begin to integrate what we have overlooked or denied. Listening to the inner voice requires a kind of stillness that the modern world rarely allows. It cannot be heard in the rush of constant distraction, nor can it be forced through willpower. It emerges in quiet moments, during solitude, reflection, or creativity. Some find it in meditation, others in nature, or even in the act of writing or painting. Whenever the external noise fades, the inner voice becomes clearer. It does not speak in commands or logical steps, but in feelings, images, and gentle nudges. It may tell us to rest when we are overworked, to speak when we are silent, to leave when we are clinging, or to stay when fear tells us to run. Its wisdom often contradicts the rational mind, yet it carries a sense of rightness that logic alone cannot provide. Ignoring this voice comes at a cost. When we silence intuition, we rely solely on intellect and external validation. Decisions become mechanical, guided by fear or social expectation rather than inner truth. We follow paths that look successful but feel empty. The further we drift from this voice, the more we lose our sense of direction and authenticity. The body may respond through anxiety, exhaustion, or restlessness, signals that something inside is being neglected. In contrast, when we trust the inner guidance, even small decisions bring peace and alignment. Life begins to feel less like a series of forced choices and more like a natural unfolding. The inner voice is patient but persistent. It continues to call us back, reminding us of what we value and who we truly are beneath the noise. To listen is to enter into partnership with the deeper self, to recognize that not all truths come from thought. This voice connects us to the unseen patterns of our own psyche, guiding us toward balance, creativity, and self-understanding. It speaks in the language of intuition and dreams, reminding us that wisdom does not always shout from the world outside, but often whispers from the world within. The world often measures growth through achievement, wealth, recognition, power, or social status. From an early age, we are taught to reach outward, to climb ladders, to collect accomplishments, to prove our worth through results. Yet, despite the pursuit of these external symbols, many people feel a quiet emptiness that success cannot fill. This emptiness is not a sign of failure but a calling, an invitation to turn inward. True growth does not arise from external validation. It emerges from the inner journey of self-discovery and acceptance, a process that transforms not what we have, but who we are. The journey within begins with a simple but profound realization: everything we seek outside, peace, meaning, connection, already exists in some form inside us. It is buried beneath layers of conditioning, fear, and expectation. We have spent years constructing identities based on what others value, yet rarely have we asked what truly matters to us. Turning inward requires slowing down and listening to what lies beneath the noise. It is a journey that replaces competition with reflection, ambition with understanding, and comparison with awareness. This journey is not linear or predictable. It does not follow the same rules as external progress. Instead of accumulation, it involves stripping away. We remove illusions, old beliefs, and false attachments until we reach what is real. In this process, discomfort becomes a teacher. Moments of confusion, loss, or failure are no longer seen as setbacks, but as invitations to grow deeper roots. Each challenge exposes a hidden part of the self, a wound that needs healing, a truth that needs acknowledgement, a fear that needs facing. True growth begins not when life is easy, but when we dare to explore what we once avoided. Self-discovery requires honesty. It asks us to look at our motivations and see how often they are shaped by fear of rejection or desire for approval. It means confronting the roles we play: the achiever, the caretaker, the pleaser, and asking who we are when those roles fall away. For many, this confrontation feels like a kind of death, the dissolving of an identity carefully built over years. But in that dissolution lies rebirth. When we release who we thought we had to be, we make room for who we truly are. Acceptance is the second half of this inner journey. Self-discovery reveals both beauty and imperfection, light and shadow. Acceptance means embracing all of it without judgment. It means recognizing that growth is not about becoming someone better, but becoming more complete. In accepting our flaws, we dissolve the shame that keeps us fragmented. In accepting our strengths, we stop shrinking to fit others' expectations. Acceptance does not mean complacency. It means living in harmony with reality, no longer fighting ourselves or pretending to be something we are not. As we continue inward, the boundaries between self and world begin to blur. We realize that the peace we find inside transforms the way we experience life outside. Relationships become more authentic because they are no longer built on need or fear. Success, when it comes, feels different, not as a validation of worth, but as an expression of alignment. We stop chasing and start creating. We stop performing and start living. The external world remains the same, but our perception changes, and that change alters everything. The journey within never truly ends. It is not a destination, but a deepening, a continuous process of awakening to ourselves. Each time we turn inward, we uncover another layer of truth, another opportunity for compassion, another piece of wisdom hidden beneath our defenses. It is the path of returning home, not to a place, but to the essence of who we are, free from the masks, fears, and expectations that once defined us. Perfection is one of the most persistent illusions that human beings chase. From childhood, we are surrounded by images and ideals that define what it means to be good, successful, beautiful, or worthy. We learn to strive for flawlessness, to hide mistakes, to suppress emotions, and to present ourselves as composed and capable at all times. Yet beneath this pursuit lies constant tension, a quiet voice whispering that no matter how hard we try, something will always be missing. The truth is that perfection is not only unattainable but also unnatural. Life itself is imperfect, full of contradictions and complexities. To become our true self, we must let go of the idea of perfection and embrace the deeper, more human goal of wholeness. Wholeness is not about polishing away our flaws, but about understanding and integrating them. It is the process of bringing every part of our being, the strengths and weaknesses, the confidence and doubt, the joy and sorrow, into balance. Instead of rejecting what we dislike within ourselves, we learn to include it as part of a larger picture. Just as light gains meaning only through the presence of shadow, our virtues exist alongside our imperfections. The parts we resist often hold the greatest potential for growth. When we accept them, we move closer to authenticity, where our sense of self no longer depends on constant self-correction or external approval. The obsession with perfection often arises from fear of judgment, rejection, and failure. We equate mistakes with inadequacy and imperfections with unworthiness. This fear keeps us in a constant state of striving, never resting, never satisfied. But growth does not happen in the absence of flaws, it happens through them. The person who never stumbles never learns balance. The one who never questions never discovers depth. Every imperfection holds a lesson, and every wound carries wisdom. Wholeness means recognizing the value of these experiences and allowing them to shape us without defining us. In the pursuit of perfection, we fragment ourselves. We hide the traits that do not fit our ideal image and overemphasize those that do. We become divided. The self we show and the self we conceal. This division leads to inner conflict and exhaustion. Wholeness heals that division. It invites us to acknowledge the full spectrum of our humanity and to live without constant self-denial. When we integrate the rejected parts, they lose their power to control us unconsciously. The anger we suppress becomes assertiveness. The vulnerability we hide becomes empathy. The fear we ignore becomes caution and humility. Integration transforms conflict into coherence. Wholeness also requires self-compassion. It asks us to treat ourselves not as projects to be perfected, but as beings to be understood. This means accepting that contradictions will always exist within us. We can be strong yet insecure, loving yet flawed, capable yet uncertain. These contradictions are not signs of failure but evidence of complexity. The more we accept this, the more peace we find. Compassion replaces criticism, understanding replaces shame, and authenticity replaces performance. In relationships, the difference between perfection and wholeness becomes even clearer. When we chase perfection, we demand it from others, expecting them to meet impossible standards, to never disappoint, to always reflect our ideal. But when we value wholeness, we begin to love people as they are, not as we imagine they should be. We see their flaws not as threats, but as windows into their humanity. This shift deepens connection and brings harmony, because it mirrors the acceptance we have cultivated within ourselves. Wholeness is not a final state. It is a continual process of embracing and integrating. It is a movement toward unity rather than purity, toward depth rather than surface. When we stop striving to be perfect and start striving to be whole, we begin to live more truthfully. We discover that peace does not come from flawless performance, but from the courage to exist as we are, complex, incomplete, and entirely human. To live authentically is to stand in the truth of who we are, even when the world pressures us to be something else. It sounds simple, yet it requires immense courage. Authenticity is not merely about self-expression. It is about self-honesty, the willingness to see ourselves clearly and to live according to that truth, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. In a society that rewards conformity and punishes vulnerability, being real becomes an act of quiet rebellion. It demands that we let go of masks, face uncertainty, and risk misunderstanding for the sake of integrity. The courage to be real begins with self-awareness. We cannot live authentically if we do not first know what is true within us. This means listening deeply to our own emotions, needs, and values instead of constantly measuring ourselves against others. Many people live by scripts they did not write, shaped by family expectations, cultural norms, or the desire to please. They follow careers, relationships, and lifestyles that align with what is acceptable rather than what is meaningful. The first step toward authenticity is recognizing these borrowed patterns and asking, "Is this really mine?" That question alone can shake the foundations of a life built on external approval. Once we begin to know ourselves, the next challenge is honesty, not only with others but also with ourselves. We often lie to avoid pain, pretending to be fine when we are not, pretending to agree when we silently resist, pretending to belong when we feel lost. These small deceptions seem harmless, yet they accumulate, creating distance between our inner truth and outer life. To bridge that distance, we must be willing to speak and act from honesty, even when it disrupts comfort. Telling the truth can lead to conflict, disappointment, or loss, but the cost of silence is far greater. When we deny what we feel or believe, we abandon ourselves. Authenticity also involves vulnerability, a word often misunderstood as weakness. In reality, vulnerability is the essence of strength. It means showing up without armor, admitting uncertainty, and allowing others to see our humanity. To be vulnerable is to say, "This is me," without hiding behind perfection or pretense. It is to trust that even if we are rejected, we are still whole. Yet vulnerability feels dangerous because it exposes us to judgment. The fear of rejection can be so powerful that we choose to stay invisible rather than risk being misunderstood. True courage is the decision to be seen anyway. Living authentically challenges every form of false security. It may change how others perceive us or how we relate to the world. When we choose honesty over approval, we might lose relationships built on illusion or opportunities that demand compromise of our values. But what remains after that loss is far more valuable: integrity. Integrity is the alignment between what we believe and how we live. It gives us an unshakable sense of peace, even when life feels uncertain. To act from integrity is to trust that being genuine is worth more than being accepted. The courage to be real also requires patience. Authenticity is not achieved overnight. It unfolds gradually through moments of truth-telling, boundary setting, and self-reflection. Some days we will retreat into old habits of pretending. Other days we will stand fully in our truth. The path is not about perfection but persistence. Each time we choose honesty, we strengthen the muscle of authenticity. Each time we face discomfort instead of hiding, we reclaim a piece of ourselves. When we live authentically, we give others permission to do the same. Our honesty becomes a quiet invitation for openness. Realness breeds realness, and in its presence, superficiality fades. To be real is to live without disguise, to accept that discomfort, imperfection, and misunderstanding are part of the human experience. It is to trust that truth, however difficult, is always the foundation of freedom.